My guest today on Great Dane Nation was a force to be reckoned with for the Houston Oilers, for the Buffalo Bills. Not on offense or defense as much as on that third phase, special teams, where you get the hidden yards, you get the big plays, and you affect real change in the football game. Steve Tasker is a Hall of Famer. Yeah, he doesn't have a bust yet in Canton, Ohio, but if it's up to me, he should, and hopefully one day the Hall will recognize him and put him in there. And Steve, welcome. You also cost me a ton of money at a Pro Bowl. I want to start there because I'm sure you're going to deny it. I'm sure you're going to say, well, that play was legal. As I want to catch my listeners up, when you play in a Pro Bowl and you have a field goal attempt or punt, you're not allowed to rush anybody. Wait a minute. You're not allowed to rush anybody, and I don't know the year that this took place, Steve. But as I remember it, you parachuted through the A gap and took the ball off a game-winning kick, a 47-yarder from the right hash in Aloha Stadium, and cost the NFC not only the game, but I would say over $250,000 in money. And I caught so much shit from the likes of Lawrence Taylor. But I'll finish and then you can rebut. You'll have the floor. You'll have the floor. And I remember going, Steve, and you're laughing. You're laughing because you knew exactly what you were doing. It was an illegal play, should have been flagged, and the game should have been re-kicked with a penalty for unsportsmanlike, 15 yards closer. But no, the AFC took the check, the big winner's check, and I took a bunch of grief. I couldn't wait to get off the island.
Yeah, well.
All right, the floor is yours.
Here's what happened. There's no reason that you should feel upset. It was not your fault that kick got blocked. I actually, and this is the kind of, you know what it's like. I mean, you're a Hall of Famer, and you never know who it's going to be because we're all active players at the time. And once you retire, you have to wait 5 years to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. But, you know, when you play in the Pro Bowl, and you as many times as you played in the Pro Bowl, and me the same thing, you know that there are guys on the field that are going to be sprinkled in, Hall of Famers all over the field every given year. You play with legends of the game in the Pro Bowl. It's a real privilege, and I always treated it as such. But I will say this. When I tell that story, I split the gap between Mike Singletary and Reggie White to get into the backfield to block the kick by Morten Andersen. And so you can say whatever you want, but that's how I tell the story. So and Morten Andersen, I may be the only guy in history that had Morten Andersen kick a field goal right into my armpit. That's how far I was in the backfield. I could have slapped, high-fived you on the way by. I was so close.
You tried, but I was so pissed. I was pissed at you, and I was pissed at. Thank you for mentioning. I can't get after Reggie because he's passed.
Right.
I can still get Mike. So I'll get Singletary when I see him at the Hall next year.
I say,
hey, you remember? He'll deny it.
He's going
to deny it.
I'm acquainted with Mike myself, and I happened to see him at a conference about a month after the Pro Bowl. I saw him at a conference, and he came up to me and he laughed. He goes, you know, you really should give me. I got the MVP of the game because of that play. He says, you should really. That MVP trophy that they gave you for the Pro Bowl should really be mine, seeing as how I'm largely responsible for you winning that. So he knew.
Oh, this is good news. This is inside. This is great intel from you because now I can go to him and say, Steve Tasker told me, and then I'll drop that on him.
Yeah, it was him. He was Reggie White was the end. He was the wing back. I went.
He'll laugh.
I went up and yes, and tell him.
Did you get a car? So you were the MVP. You didn't get a car? No. You got a trophy?
I was one of the years they didn't do that. I got a nice pat on the back and a trophy, which is in my attic in a box somewhere.
So. Oh, wow. Well, I had to get off my chest, Steve, because I was just I've been holding it in, and it's not healthy. My therapist tells me that it's not healthy to hold
I
those
know
things.
it's probably too soon. It's only been 29 years. I know it's too soon. It's too soon.
So, unfortunately, this was your last year as a modern era candidate for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I feel bad. I feel bad about it because every year I'm out there promoting you and saying we need more specialists. You're deserving of being in Canton, Ohio, and now you'll go to the senior list and you'll be eligible there. But there's a lot of guys there.
Right.
Hopefully, so I mean, do you have any emotions? I know when it's out of your hands,
Right.
right? So
It's hard to,
how you feeling, bro? Yeah.
well, Morten, hey, everybody should be me, Morten. I had my career was fun. It was great. I love the relationships I had with not only guys on my team, but guys on other teams like you and other guys around the league. It was great. And it was always humbling and very gratifying to be in the conversation for the Hall of Fame. I was a semifinalist 9 times during the 20 years I had to do it. It was phenomenal. And I love the fact that I was in the conversation for that long. And there were guys out there who didn't forget about it. And it was great. So, yes, certainly. I mean, the Hall of Fame is for most guys beyond their wildest dreams, and it was for me too. To be in the conversation for that, and to be nominated and remembered by guys, and to be complimented by Hall of Famers like yourself and some of the guys I played with and other guys around the league. It's very gratifying and it's humbling. I think it's wrong for me, and I've seen other guys become bitter because they had a great career and have not been remembered by the Hall of Fame. And that is not me. I am.
No, I don't. I know.
I am so thankful for what the league has done for me and what it continues to do for me in my broadcasting career and the remembrances I get because of the career I had and the team that I was on. I really have not allowed myself to even begin to think about going down the road where I feel like the game owed me something because of what I used to be. I don't go there. I could never be bitter about the Hall of Fame because of the joy and the prosperity and the genuine benefits I've gotten from the league over the last, since when I got drafted in 1985. So over the last 35, 40 years, I could never be bitter about what the game has done for me and what it's allowed me to do. So yeah, the Hall of Fame was great. And of course it would have been beyond my wildest dreams to have been inducted. But I still love the NFL. I still loved my career and the teams that I was on. There's not too much. There may be a couple of games I'd like to change the outcome of or maybe change. But for that, don't we all feel that? Even Hall of Famers wish there were different outcomes to games they played in. So I'm like that. And I appreciate it. So thank you for the kind words you said about my career and all that. But believe me, I am full of joy and gratitude for the life football's given me.
Well said, Steve. But it's a fact that you were a game changer, and those words are, they're true. And if you look at your body of work, I mean, you were a real game changer because you had a knack for finding the space, finding the right moment in a game. I felt I know when we game planned for Buffalo, we didn't play you a bunch because I was in the NFC, but we met a couple of times. And I remember, I mean, it wasn't just, it just wasn't kick blocking, which you were very, very good at. And I want to talk to you a little bit, but it was also in the return game and the schemes. And you always made a crucial block. You made the right, coverage. You were a force on kickoff coverage, on punt coverage. And you just overall really was, in my mind, one of the 3 greatest special team players in the history of the game. That's where I see you.
I appreciate it.
That's
I think for a lot of people, for a lot of people, it really for some place like before 1982 and back in the late 70s, mid to 70s, late 70s, in the 60s, and I know the old timers that were around back then, it's hard for them to get their mind around how big a difference special teams are, because what happened in 82 was that the rosters expanded to have more guys available on game day to play. Coaches and football people were really clamoring because the rosters were so small in the 60s and 70s. There were only like 36 guys on game day on the field for either team. And once they kind of said, listen, we need some guys because we lose too many, like if we lose 2 offensive linemen, we have nobody to play for us. I mean, that kind of thing. So when the rosters expanded right at the end, early part of the 80s, as a professional, coaches and players, they wanted to maximize every player on their roster every game if they could. And that's when special teams players became professional special teams players. And when the game expanded back in early 1980s, and I think the recognition so expanded as well. They made a spot for the Pro Bowlers in the Pro Bowl for special teams players. They made, kickers and punters, long snappers became a huge thing. Yeah. And you had a position group on each roster of guys that were like, I was a wide receiver. I was with running backs, fullbacks, tight ends, linebackers, and defensive backs. We were the guys on those teams that were there because of their special teams group and depth at those positions. We became our own position group, separate from linebackers and tight ends and running backs and that kind of thing. They were a core group of special teams players, and that's the way it is on every roster. So I think for guys going forward, for guys like Matt Slater and Matthew Slater in New England and stuff, going forward, as the game expanded to include those guys, include slot receivers and nickel defensive backs, and rotating defensive ends and that kind of thing, third down backs. So too, I think the Hall of Fame should expand going forward to include those position groups that it contributes so much. Because I know across the National Football League and the guys that I played with and guys you probably played with, I know I played with some first ballot guys like Bruce Smith and Jim Kelly, and also Hall of Famers like Thurman Thomas and James Lofton and Andre Reed. They really appreciated the contribution guys like me made, other special teams players made. And I know that on other teams that when we were winning games, the other team were going, well, God, now we got special teams guys we got to keep up with, and our team is not there yet. I think there is going forward, the Hall of Fame should be expanded to include everybody who contributes on the team. And like it has for kickers and punters, specialists like you guys. And now Devin Hester has been a finalist, which is something I never got to do. So good for him.
Let's talk about him. Yeah, good for him. And let's talk about, so number one, it's still a bias. There just is. There's just a reluctance to look our way. Whether there's a bias against, oh, well, he's not an every down player, or the voters can't wrap their head around the fact that, you can have Hall of Fame difference makers on special teams, and you can, and you have, and there are. So why is there that bias? Is it just because the old mentality? And in your opinion, does, Devin is he's now a finalist. Does he have a chance, in your opinion? Does he have a chance? Or do we wait for you to get in, and then maybe it's a Slater, in New England down the road?
I think of Matthew Slater. I don't think there's any question that he'll get in when his time comes. He may not be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but he'll be a guy that they have to address, and at least he'll get into the finalist room where they will have to address his candidacy. Up until the time you're a finalist, they don't do that in an open forum with all the voters in the room. So, and Devin Hester, they're going to do that this year, and I think it's a great question. I think certainly he has a chance to be inducted, no question about it. There are guys who make differences for these teams, and there is a bias, no question about it. A guy who plays, and statistically, 20% of the plays in an NFL game are special teams plays. And I think that over the last 4 or 5 years, it's become harder and harder to contribute on special teams because of the player safety,
rules
that have kind of muted their ability to make a difference. Back in the day, there was no clean hands rule, whereas, if there's a difference between a muff and a fumble, there was never a difference between a muff and a fumble before. The kickoff out of bounds rules, the kickoff, moving the kick up to the 35 and guys are still kicking it out of the end zone. Well, back in the day, they used to kick off from the 40 and nobody could reach the end zone with a kick. Now it's laughable because we have professional kickers.
It's a non-play.
Right.
It's not a play.
Right. So it's harder to contribute on special teams now. And I have thought that the golden era of special teams was between the early 80s when they began to be a thing and till the end of the salary cap era and now into the player safety. I think that was the golden era of special teams because there was no player safety. The rules were open. It was kind of wide open a little bit. If you looked at it now, it's a little bit more like the Wild West on special teams back in the day when you and I began our careers and into the deeper part of our careers. It was the Wild West because you had some guys that could really make a difference because the ball was free and easy, and it was 20% of the plays were special teams plays. 90 to 95% of field position was dictated by special teams. And it was also the only play where a guy like you could come out and score actual points on the play for an extra point or a field goal. And it was also the only play in football where you deliberately gave the ball to your opponent with a punt or a kickoff. So all that stuff rolled into one. Those 20% of the plays carry more weight in the actual outcome of the game than just 20%. And if you add another 0.5%, it's up to 30%, 33% is a full third of the game that affects the ability of offense and defense to win. So there are a lot of reasons and a lot of justification for taking a good look at special teams and how much they contribute.
You're making a very good point there, and I agree with you. The golden era was we had a guy like Benny Thompson. Remember Benny Thompson?
I know Benny. I played against Benny a lot of times.
Oh, and you knew. I mean, I knew on kickoff. I had Benny right there at the L5. And I'm saying this guy's going to make the play.
Right.
I mean, he's going to go down and wedge bust and go through there and make a play. And he's going to headhunt, but can't do that anymore. I mean, really, it's a non-play. Another thing I want to get your take on is the onside kick. I'm very disappointed in the rule change. It was a 28%, 26, 30% success rate play. Now it's 6 to 8%. They've taken one of the most exciting plays in football and neutralized it. They've cut the balls right off of that play, to put it bluntly. What's your take on that? Let's get that back to where we can overload.
Right. I'll say this, and they're right. And I get the player safety thing. I mean, I was a victim of that many times, but I also think too, and when I went to the kickoff summit in New York, when they were revamping the kickoff alignment rules, I was gratified to see that even at the highest levels of football at that time and now, there's a real commitment to keeping the foot in the game. Punts, kickoffs, kickoff returns, field goals, field goal defense. They really want to make sure that the game stays true to those plays and keeps them as a part of the game. So kickoffs are never going to go away. But I also think it also marked a time when they are willing to address moments like that in a game where the game changes during the game and a team with a big lead has lost it and can't get it back. And the team that has the momentum still has a chance to kick the ball off and get it back. Maybe, you choose your percentage of what that chance might be. But to give them the onside kick back or a way to do that, I think they still want to tinker with that and make sure that that's still a possibility. I think it keeps games interesting. Certainly, there's always when you talk about the onside kick, it's hard to do. It's always been hard to do. But you're right. Those plays have been catalysts for some of the most iconic moments in some franchises' history. So I think they need to revisit it, find out a way that they can make it more gettable for the team that's kicking the ball. One out of or less than 1%, 0.8%, 0.8 of 1% is the only time they're getting it. It's like less than 1 out of 10, 1 out of 100, or less than 10 out of 100 kicks are being recovered. And it used to be way more than that. And you used to have guys that were good at it, and strategy was still a thing. And you could still use, tricks where you'd overload one side and lob it back to the other side. The creativity is part of what makes it compelling, and I think they've taken it all away. And I think it's unfortunate that they have.
I hope it gets revisited in the Rules Committee, and here's another one, and I'm sure Bills Mafia agree. I'm sure you would agree on this. Having watched one of the greatest football games here, Kansas City and the Bills in Arrowhead. I mean, what a game!
Yeah.
Holy cow! What an incredible back and forth game, and those two great quarterbacks, and Josh Allen, bright future for the Bills. But I was sitting there at the end, and I saw the expression on Josh Allen's face, and I knew what he was thinking. God, I don't, and it is what it is right now. But
Give him a chance. Yeah.
get, there wasn't one human being, maybe aside from all the Chiefs fans, who didn't want to see Josh Allen take the field one more time and to see if he could match what just happened for Mahomes and the Chiefs. And so I say, come on, let's tweak that OT rule a little bit, and let's give a great quarterback, a great young quarterback, a chance to shine and extend the game. Do you agree?
Yeah, and I see the semblance of that and the reasons for that and the reasoning behind. But let's not forget too that in the regular season, it's only here's the difference in the regular season. It's a coin flip as to whether the team that wins the coin flip wins the game. So the coin flip means nothing in the regular season. In the playoffs, the team that wins the coin flip is 10-1 because in the playoffs, you got that guy quarterback. You got Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen. They're going to win. You got Justin Herbert. You got all these great. You got Dan Marino. You got Dan Faust. You're the team. You're going to go. So that's the thing. And I think so. That's what you got. So maybe, and we got to these rules because the sudden death rules were exactly what you said. It was easy just to go down and get in field goal range and kick a field goal, win. And you wanted to give them a chance. We got to these rules because the other rules, the sudden death rules, weren't good enough. And so now, and I think I can picture at the highest levels of football, they're saying, listen, you got to play defense. And in the regular season, that's true. But in the playoffs, you get to the playoffs because you score points. And when you get to the playoffs, these guys are capable of going down and scoring that touchdown, and the other guy never sees the field. I see the semblance of saying, hey, defense has got to be important too. And I'll say this too, Mort. I get, like this game we just watched, Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Buffalo Bills. 31 points were scored from inside the 2-minute warning, in the last couple of minutes of the game and overtime. It was unbelievable, right? It was unbelievable. One of the things that makes us dissatisfied with the overtime rules is because you and me and everybody watching, we wish the game wouldn't end, right? Correct. We want to see, no matter what happens, we're going to be disappointed that it's over. And the fact that one of the quarterbacks didn't get it gives us an easy handle to say something should be changed. But it'll never change the fact that we wish, like during the week after that game, we still wish the game was going on, right? I mean, that's always going to be with us. Great games, we never want to see those games end. We never see, there's never a deserving winner because both teams have played so outstanding. You want to see those quarterbacks go. That's why we watch the game. And to see it end, no matter how it ends, we're going to be disappointed that it's over. The only thing is that you want to see you want to make it fair. And it's hard to do when you've got teams of that caliber offensively playing against each other and two defenses that are absolutely spent. They're done.
They were spent. They were done, man.
And so you can say the rules were bad and all that, but the simple fact of the matter was none of us wanted to see that game end one way or the other. So
you're right.
Simple.
You're such a romantic, Steve. You're such a romantic. I like it.
Yeah.
I agree. No,
the way it goes.
Yeah, I guess that was my frustration.
Yeah,
and I took it out on the rule.
And it's easy.
Sorry, rule.
It's easy, but if Josh Allen comes back out, I mean, I like the college. And we could do something outlandish, like change the game completely. But think about this, and with the conversation you and I have just been having. If we went to the college way of deciding the game, the only special team that would take the field would be the field goal or extra point team. You wouldn't get punt or punt return, kickoff return involved at all anyway. You rarely do as it is now. But if you went to college way and you put each team on the 20-yard line or the 10-yard line, whatever it is,
25, I think.
You got down and distance, go. And, the winner, the guy who scores and doesn't match that score, it's like a shootout in hockey,
Yeah.
That would be exciting, but it would be a vastly, vastly different ending to football games than we've ever seen. And that's a drastic change that I don't know the NFL doesn't lend itself to drastic change.
I know they're pretty traditional and old-fashioned. Takes time. Takes
Yeah,
a lot of time.
yeah.
Yeah. Steve, give your Bills a letter grade. How close are they? I mean, I had the Bills winning the Super Bowl this year, so they were close. They're real close. So give them a letter grade. Did they perform as you
Well,
expected before the season, or
yeah,
where are you?
yes, they did. I mean, they were the team, and I think either you can pick the Chiefs or the Bills and say that's the team from the AFC that you can envision winning the Super Bowl, no question. Now, certainly Cincinnati could jump up and do exactly what the Bills did, but the performance that Josh Allen put together at the end of this regular season and the beginning of the playoffs, he threw a perfect game against the number 2 defense in the league, in the Patriots in Buffalo. 7 drives, 7 touchdowns. 5 touchdowns, 4 incomplete passes, 0 interceptions. I mean, the only thing that this year's version of the Buffalo Bills that I think kept them from going to and winning the Super Bowl was one of 6 regular season losses. If you change any one of those around, and there are 3 of them that were 1 play away, they would have been the 1 seed or the 2 seed.
Yes.
And the game that we just saw would have been in Buffalo. So
Yes.
being able to be consistent was the only thing keeping them from being as good a team as anybody else. Because right now, I think they are. They could line up and beat any team in the NFL on any Sunday. So they are right where they need to be. They're absolutely an A plus. And the only thing that keeps them from being Super Bowl champions is the fact that it's a really hard league to win in, and home field made a difference.
Yeah.
They're an A-plus roster, an A-plus coaching staff, all of that. And the fact that their defense was so gassed, they couldn't stop a team for 13 seconds, the best offensive team in the league for 13 seconds. I mean, that's how much they left on the field in Kansas City. So it's hard to discount anything that the Bills did this season. They went up against maybe the best quarterback and offense in the league and went toe-to-toe with them.
Yes.
So there's nothing about this team, about this Bills team, that anybody should be sad about.
Are they hoisting the Lombardi then in 3 to 5 years, or is it next year? What's your prediction? Put your Notre Dame hat on here. Nostradamus, I think is the guy's name.
Yeah, yes, I do. I think they are. I think they are. They've got the absolute guy, the horses they need to get there. I think they've got the coaching staff. They have gotten better. And surprisingly, as good as they are, I didn't know that they could get much better than football than when they played last year. Josh Allen has taken it to another level. He is as good as he was a year ago, where he was runner-up in the MVP voting. This last month of the regular season and playoffs of the Buffalo Bills, he's gotten even better, markedly better. And it's because it almost seems like he's now taking every easy pass he makes, he hits it 100% of the time. He takes them when he's supposed to take them early in the down. He doesn't try to extend a play to get a home run every play. He becomes almost impossible to get off the field offensively. If you're Sean McDermott right now, even if you're inside your own 30-yard line, you wouldn't be all that upset going for it on 4th and 5 inside your own end. That's how much confidence Josh Allen emits in that offense. You just never take him off the field. Just go 4-down territory all the way to the end of the drive until he either loses it on 4th down or scores a touchdown. That's how good they were at the end of this last season. Now, they did punt twice in the Chiefs game, and I get that. Chiefs punted twice as well. But that's where you're at with Josh. He's almost impossible to get off the field offensively, particularly in 4-down territory. I mean, the guy's just impossible. Third on, he converted a touchdown on a 4th and 13. Just amazing.
Unbelievable.
So all of those things in the box, this team is going to be a Super Bowl contender for the foreseeable future. No question about it.
How important to Josh Allen then is Brian Daboll? I mean, you're looking at a guy that absolutely has figured out how to use Josh and his very unique skill set the right way. And will he be there? I mean, he's definitely a candidate for.
Yeah, I think Brian Daboll will probably exit as a head coach. As we're speaking, it looks like he's in the finalists for the Miami job. He's a finalist for the Giants job. It's interesting because, and that may not happen, but if it does not, certainly you can anticipate them rolling right along with this offense. And I think if he does go, that hire is absolutely critical to the Bills going forward, that offensive coordinator hire, whether it's from in-house, Ken Dorsey or Chad Hall, the wide receivers coach, or if they go outside, then either way, I think it's critical for the success of this team going forward to get a guy in there that can be creative, innovative, intelligent, and a great play caller.
All right, so the Bills are going to hoist the Lombardi. Can I get your commitment today, right now, that you will stand right in the middle of thousands of Bills Mafia on the hood of a car and pound a card table, jump on the table?
Yeah, and light it on fire too. Yeah. But
you're committed to
doing table
that.
On fire. I'll go off the hood of a car onto the table. Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. I love it. That's going to be fun. Hey, you're a Big Ten guy. Northwestern question for you here. You know, it's your alma mater. You had they've had 4 weird years there under Pat Fitzgerald. They were 9 in 18. They were 9-5. They lost in the Big Ten championship. Then they're 3-9. Then they're 7-2, lost in the Big Ten. And then last year, 3-9. I mean, what do we make of this, the current state of the Wildcats? Yeah. Why is this so up and down?
Well, I'll tell you, they have – it's a difficult – first of all, the admission – it's a private school, unlike Michigan and Ohio State and all that. It's a private school. So that comes with its own set of problems. Recruiting is actually it's one of those schools where if you get the right kind of player, there's no other school for them to go to. A highly academic guy who has maybe some pro football aspirations, or maybe grows up while he's at your school. You get him when he's a 17-year-old, and all of a sudden at a 22-year-old, he's a completely different physical specimen, and he turns into an offensive rookie of the year like Slater did out in San Diego, a left tackle who's a rookie of the year for them. So guys like that. But if you get the right kind of guy, there's really no other school for a player that goes to Northwestern. They're a guy who wants to go to a big city like Chicago. It's a suburb school, but it's in Chicago area. The academics are stellar. It's got a great academic reputation, and play in an absolutely premier conference, Power 5 conference in the Big Ten. So you get to play at the highest level. The facilities they have at Northwestern as a practice player in a practice facility are unbelievably appealing to young players. They're unbelievable. It's an absolutely unbelievable facility they have to practice and get ready for. So it comes in, it seems to, with Pat Fitzgerald, who, by the way, will be there as long as he wants to be. We can get into why that is too, but it's difficult because they'll get a couple of 3 or 4 good guys, and those guys can carry a roster in the Big Ten. You get the right guy, particularly a quarterback who can make it happen, a couple of athletes. They'll always have quality teams at Northwestern because Pat Fitzgerald runs a tight ship, but it's all about recruiting, and not everybody can get into that school. So when they can get a handful of really good recruits who can carry a squad and can get young players like freshmen, sophomore who are good enough to jump up with the juniors and seniors that you put in there a year or two before, then he puts together a pretty good roster. But if you have a down year, that hole in your recruiting shows itself in the wins and losses. Northwestern's an interesting place because there's no pressure at Northwestern to win a national championship. They do want to be competitive, and they do want to keep their graduation rates high, and they do want to keep the quality of their team in a character mode where it should be. They want guys that can get there and cut it and hack it academically as well as on the football field. Those guys don't fall, those guys aren't as prevalent as just plain athletes who can make it with a basket weaving class. So,
I know what you mean.
But it is appealing. You're living in Chicago. It's a great city in a great Power 5 conference with no pressure to win the national championship every year. Just be good in the Big Ten. Be competitive. Beat some Michigan State once in a while.
No, not Michigan State. No.
Great. Beat, Purdue and Indiana.
I got you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
compete with Ohio State and Michigan on a one every handful of years. Take those guys to the wire, maybe beat them. It's a good place to be. And I think Pat Fitzgerald has found his niche, and he's smart enough to know Northwestern's a pretty good place to be a head coach if you can make it work and under those parameters. The national championship, you don't have to worry about that. But if you can get into the Big Ten championship game once in a while, man, alumni like me are pretty happy about that. So I think it's a great place to coach, and he's doing a wonderful job. And as so many things, you got to get the right kids at the right time when you're recruiting in college. And Northwestern seems to do that enough of the time to be more than just an afterthought.
That's very interesting. I never really thought of Northwestern that way. Makes sense, that student athlete, really, that's what it means. Yeah. Student first, then athlete.
Tough school academically. They take great pride in it. And their admissions bar for just the regular forget athletes, just a regular kid trying to get in there, it's not easy to get into Northwestern at all. There's less than 10,000 undergraduate students there. And there's only about 12,000 total undergrads and graduate students. It's a small university and elite academically.
Very interesting take, Steve. I appreciate that. Hey, I want to end with a little name game for you.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a name. You just, whatever comes to mind, doesn't have to be a long sentence. It can be a word or, a paraphrase.
Okay.
These are guys with whom you're very familiar. So, and we haven't really touched on some of these guys. So I think our listeners they would be keen to hear your take on these guys. So we'll just start at the top with Jim Kelly.
Jim, first of all, he's a good friend. Tough as nails, and he's legendary. I'll tell you a story real quick. There's great players, and then there's players who are legendary. I'll tell you a story. I think the guy's name was Anthony Phillips. He was a safety for the Atlanta Falcons. Way back in the day, in the late 80s, early 90s, maybe it was in 1990 or in the 90s, right around in that area. And he was having a great year. And early in the year, we played the Atlanta Falcons in Buffalo. And I'll tell you this, talk about great quarterbacks. I played with a bunch of them. I played against Dan Fouts. I played against and with Dan Marino in Pro Bowls, John Elway, Boomer Esiason. You go down the list of all the great quarterbacks that were in my era and stuff, and Jim was different. So say Dan Fouts throws an interception, he's disgusted, takes his chin strap up and starts to walk off the field immediately. The player, the guy might be returning or whatever, the play's still going on. He's walking off the field disgusted. Dan Marino, same thing. He stands there and stares at the guy while everybody else is tackling him. John Elway. Now, Elway he'll jog over and kind of herd the guy. He doesn't want to mix it up at all, right? He doesn't want to get involved at all, right? Nope. No, these quarterbacks, they'll throw an interception and that's it. Their job is done. There's a mistake. They're walking off the field. So we're playing the Atlanta Falcons. Jim Kelly throws an interception we're going in the end zone. And I think the guy's name's Anthony Phillip. He catches it on the end line and brings it out. And he's going to return it because he's got an open field ahead of him. And Jim takes the angle on him. And Jim, this is why he's legendary. He didn't walk off the field in disgust and watch the guy run. He chased him down and broke his leg.
Okay.
It was an unfortunate. He tackled him low, tried to dive at him, swiped him, and the guy unfortunately broke his leg doing it. That's why Jim is legendary. That's why guys like me would break wedges and run through walls and do that, because my quarterback, maybe the best player in the league at the time at different times, would do that. He was in it to win it and would do things like that for his team to win. Even if he made a mistake, he's trying to make up for it at the other end of the play. He's
beautiful.
in it.
I love it. Yeah.
That's why he's legendary.
Thurman Thomas.
Oh, man. That guy, after I was finished playing, I fooled myself into thinking I would stay in shape, right? So I go down on the treadmill in my right. You go down in your basement and you get on the treadmill or the elliptical machine or whatever you're doing, Stairmaster, and you put on TV and you put on an old game, right? Back in my day, back when I was still working out, it was VHS, right? I mean, it was like a tape. It wasn't even a DVD. That's how old I am. So I went back and I would do that, and I would put in old Buffalo Bill games.
Yes.
And I played with the guy, watched him practice, was on the field watching him play. He's still a real close friend of mine. Watching the old games of the teams year after year, play after play, game after game, I was shocked at the physical punishment Thurman Thomas absorbed and kept going. He was an absolute physical freak for being able to show up at practice the next day, let alone the next play. The tackles and the physicality of the game that he endured watching him play and then watching the replay of the game was unbelievable to me. And I thought as I was, I thought this as I was, on these old elliptical machine watching this, I go, my gosh. And this is the truth. Unless they told him he had to, Thurman Thomas never, ever took a day off of practice. Not a Monday, not a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I never saw him not on the field with his helmet ready to practice. And I watched so many of those games back in the day, and I had forgotten. I had forgotten how unbelievably tough and resilient Thurman was. And that's my Thurman Thomas take.
There's a recurring theme here. So far, I've given you two names, and the recurring word that comes from you, tough.
Yeah, very much
tough.
So.
Bill's tough.
Very, very much so.
And here, let's just go 3 for 3 then. Bruce Smith.
Okay. Bruce is the greatest defensive player of all time.
Wow, that's a big statement.
Greatest defensive. He's certainly the best pass rusher defensive end of all time.
You're comparing with Reggie White, Lawrence Taylor.
All of them. All of them.
Wow.
All of them.
Whitey's. All right, defend that. I'm not arguing. I'm not saying you're not correct.
I thought too much. Bruce played for a long time and was effective from year 1 all the way to year 19 or whatever it was. He played 20. He was the greatest of all time, supremely gifted. And I think the thing that he doesn't get credit for, and certainly he was at times in our locker room, he was a goober. I mean, nobody was off limit. You know how it is. You can make fun of everybody.
Oh, it's the best. That's why I love you guys.
Certainly, Bruce had his issues like we all did, but the thing he has never gotten the credit for, and you'll understand this too. One of the reasons a player is able to play for a long time, certainly his commitment, certainly its ability, certainly its technique and coaching and opportunity, and just good fortune to put together a career as long as he did. The thing he never gets in the credit for is how smart he was. He was supremely intelligent. He knew what it was going to take to continue to play and to continue to be successful. And one of the reasons he was such a good pass rusher was because of the intelligence he had. He could outsmart and then, of course, out-physical most people. But the combination of the two, if he couldn't out-physical you, he was going to outthink you and get to the quarterback anyway. It was evident in his preparation. It was evident in his commitment to continuing to get more and more complex moves and complex techniques that he could use in any given moment, and his intelligence to whip that thing out when in the moment of a game, when he did this, you would practice it so much, and he would counter. Just a highly intelligent, supremely gifted athlete. And that's a hard combination to beat. And I just don't think everybody knows how supremely gifted he was physically, but I don't think he ever got the credit for his intelligence about his craft and his ability to apply it. And, he was a 10 in athleticism and athletic gifts, physicality, intelligence, a commitment, team. He was just a 10 in every category across the board. And it's rare. It's really rare.
It's high praise, brother. Oh, well, another Hall of Famer here, Andre Reed.
Andre Reed. Let me tell you something.
Name after name,
yeah.
Hall of Famers.
I tell you, yes, you're right. I can tell you a story about all the Hall of Famers, but Andre was an absolute workhorse of self improvement. When he came in, he came as a fourth round pick from Kutztown State, and he was and I think, and I wasn't here his first year, his second year I was here in Buffalo. He was so insecure about his place. And I thought, he had that chip on his shoulder, like, I really got to prove myself. I've got, I was a fourth round pick. They took Chris Burkett in the second round, the same team. I really got to work hard. And, nobody knows me. Like they're like, oh, who's that guy? He's Andre. He had to make it. He knew he had to make a name for himself. Nobody knew who he was. He was a fourth round draft pick. He didn't know if truly he belonged. He knew you had to work. He found out very early, or maybe he knew coming in, that he had to work really hard to stay in the league. He had the most enormous chip on his shoulder for knowing he had to self-improve. He had to get better. He had to get a better route runner. He had to get better at run after the catch. He had to get better hands. He had to get better in the slot at different spots on the line, outside, inside. There were, of all the facets there are to playing wide receiver, Andre attacked all of them. I think he felt a genuine sense of fear that he wasn't going to be good enough. And I think that motivated him all the way to the Hall of Fame. And it's crazy to think about even later in his career when he'd accomplished so much, that he still had that fear of failing and not being good.
I feel like he has a chip now still.
He lives. That's who he is, That's who he is. So,
it gets, that gets his motive.
Yes, that has always motivated him more than anything, is I think the fear of failure, or being a failure, or being not what everybody thinks he should be, or everything he thinks he should be. I think it has always motivated him, and it carried him all the way to the Hall of Fame and all the way to Canton, Ohio.
I just have a unique bond with you guys, and I don't know why that is. I only went to one Super Bowl. You went to 4. You lost them all, but it was 4 in a row. Impossible to do. People forget that getting there, the journey to get there, is success. That is success measured at the highest level. People forget that. So I want to say that. But for some reason, I just feel like there's such a bond between you guys. And, I mentioned Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Andre Reed, you had James Lofton, you had Darryl Talley, Cornelius Bennett, and I go on. And you guys are still tight. I go to Jim Kelly's event in July, and we see each other, and I'm certainly an outside. I'm not part of the Bills family, but I feel like I fit right in. Like, if it hadn't been Scott Norwood or Steve Christie, I could have easily become a Bills kicker. I could see myself in a Bills uniform, because I relate to the nonsense that you guys partake in off the field. It's just ridiculous. I mean, it's fun as hell, So to that point, I want to get your take on Marv Levy, because he was kind of the guy that made sense of it all, and you guys, all you lunatics, he really did. And then I want to finish with a question we have from a listener about the Bills Mafia. But give me your take on Marv Levy.
Well, this, Morten. The Super Bowl team you were on, and all the successful teams you were on, were special because it wasn't just one guy. It was a conglomeration of a lot of great guys, and a lot of wonderful things come together. And certainly in a football team, you got 50 guys. They got to come together, certainly keyed by a few. But the thing about Marv was, and I know the other guys would tell you the same thing, Marv could have been anything he wanted to be. He could have been president of the U.S. I mean, that's the kind of quality person he was. He could have been a doctor, a lawyer, a politician. He could have been a congressman, a U.S. president, even, one of those, an ambassador to another country. He could have done a Fortune 500 executive. Anything Marv Levy would have committed his life to, he would have been successful at the highest levels, without question. That's why he was able to take all the knuckleheads that you referred to, and all the egos, and and in the midst of all those egos, all the quote unquote the failures of not getting to that game, the 1988 championship game, the 1989 playoff loss, that lost the Super Bowl 25, 26, 27, 28. His ability to take those egos in the midst of those crushing defeats and to move them forward to the next one, only to be defeated again, was unparalleled. It takes an unbelievable leader and an unbelievable human being to do that. He's 96. I think now he's 96 now, and I went to dinner with him in the preseason of this last football game, and it was 2 hours of laughs, and he was like an entertainer.
Yes.
It was, me and my friend Andrew were doing the Bills game, the preseason in Chicago, and we had Marv and Fran come out to dinner with us, and we laughed for 2 straight hours. Yes. He's 96.
Yes.
He's intelligent, articulate. Great. He never taken himself so seriously. He's iconic in a city like Chicago. He hasn't coached there since early 80s with the Blitz, the USFL team. And he's an icon in Chicago. So that's how great a guy he is and a wonderful person he is. We were lucky to have him. We all felt it. We all knew it. We felt like we were lucky to be on his team. And, like the legendary story I gave about Jim, about we would do anything for Jim because he proved he would do it for us. We would do anything for Marv the same way. He was because he was in it with us. And so, he's a tremendous. He's not only in the Canton Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, but if there was a Hall of Fame for the human race, he would be in that too.
Yeah, he wanted everybody to be good guys,
Yeah.
And connected to the community you played in. That's a feeling. And I've had numerous conversations with Marv, Coach Levy, and just a wonderful man. A man, everything that's right about football and about leading a team, you can just, if you're lucky enough to spend a little time with Marv Levy, it's a good
absolutely.
day.
He's one of the top 2 or 3 people I've ever met in my life.
That's big.
Yeah, right behind you, Mort.
Yeah. Okay. Now I know. Now I know you're just reaching. Just because I gave you the ball off my foot one time 20-some years ago.
You're on my short list, bro.
Flattery will get you everywhere, my friend.
My short list of great people forever.
I have fun. Yeah, I know. It right into your pocketbook, and as it evaporated out of mine, right into every AFC player and stuff.
You know how it is, though.
Oh, you have no idea. See how we come around to this? You have no idea the grief I took after the game.
Listen, it's not
Lawrence Taylor didn't even watch the kick, and then he goes, you missed the kick? I didn't miss the kick. He took it off my foot. He broke the rule. Not supposed to rush.
I can't believe anybody would have played for that.
You rushed 6. You guys were overloaded, like 5 guys on the right-hand side.
It was a different world.
And you ran a stunt. You ran a fancy stunt. The whole thing was ridiculous. It's a sham. I want a refund.
Oh, my gosh. I tell you.
So are you going to give me the $5,000?
Right, that's what it was. It was like that wasn't.
It was $5,000.
For most of those guys, that wasn't even a long weekend in Vegas, that game check. Right? For me and you, though, I was like, wow, dude, I gotta wait.
That's real bread, man. That's real
break
bread.
Even on the trip to the Pro Bowl.
That's why you broke the rules. That's why you did it. I get it. All right. Enough about that. I'm going to see my therapist later today. I'll be all right. All right. Let me finish up with a Twitter question from James.
Okay.
All right. He asks, is there a specific date when the Bills Mafia became the Bills Mafia? I don't know.
It probably is because they actually, the team, the guy who came up with it, I don't know, I can't be sure about the exact history. It's recent history, though, within the last 4 or 5 years, where it started to become a thing and people started to gravitate towards it. And now the team is involved with that. The trademarking and all that, and the merchandising and all that, the team has embraced it as well. So it's only been in the last 2 or 3 years. But yes, there probably is a founding date that I'm not really familiar with yet. But it's absolutely a real thing, a real entity, and they take great pride in it. And the club.
You have a certificate, membership, and
No, I don't think that there's anything like that. I think you claim it, and then you have to. That's it.
You jump on the table.
Yeah. I don't even know that there's any secret right that you have to go through to be conducted. I think you proclaim yourself as a member, and that's it. And then you spend the rest of your life
shoot a beer, and elbow a
whatever
table.
it is. You claim that you're in the Mafia, then you go the rest of your life proving it, no matter what. Right. So in games like last weekend, you still have to stay on board.
Hey man, it's the future is bright for Buffalo, for the Bills, for you as a fan and a ex-player. I mean, come on, what a great place to be right now with Josh Allen and that group of guys, as you mentioned earlier. And to be a Bills Mafia, to be a fan of the Bills is a really nice place to be right now. And I agree with you. I thought it was going to be this year that they were hoisting the Lombardi. All right, so we kick the can to next year. Good chance it'll be right there at the end. And you're right. To your earlier point, got to win the makeable games in the middle of the season so you can get home field.
It turned out to be the difference maker this year. A 6-9 victory or loss in Jacksonville, or a blocked punt on opening day, they lose to the Steelers. A famous non-call against Tampa Bay on a pass interference that would have given the Bills a chance to win the game. Or Josh Allen slipping and falling on a quarterback sneak in Tennessee
I remember that.
Any one of those things goes the other way. The Bills might have been the 1 seed, and it would have been different. But particularly if the Tennessee game goes the Bills' way, the Bills are the 1 seed.
Steve, I appreciate you. One day I will see you in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I don't know when it's going to be. I feel awful that you didn't make it to the finalists this year. You should have.
Don't feel bad. My first time I got drafted by the Oilers, and my first game as a preseason game in my entire pro football career, the first time I ever suited up in an actual game uniform was in the Pro Football Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio, as a preseason game. It was the kickoff game as a Houston Oiler, and as a result of that, the Hall of Fame sends every player that plays in the Hall of Fame game a credit card that is a lifetime pass to get into the Hall of Fame. I got it. I still got that. So if I'm there, it's probably because I'm on my lifetime pass.
Well, if you go, will you stop by the bust under the year 2017? Give me a little nookie on the.
I'll block the kick.
No, take a picture in front of my face. That would be priceless.
Both hands over your face.
Get out of here. I'm hanging up. Interview's over, Steve.